Most people believe their biggest battles exist outside of them. They look at difficult circumstances, challenging environments, or the opinions of others and assume those forces are controlling their future. But the real battlefield is much closer than that. It exists in the quiet space of your own mind. Weakness does not usually appear as something obvious or dramatic. Instead, it hides inside subtle thoughts that seem harmless at first. It says things like, maybe later, this is too difficult, or you are not ready yet. These thoughts slowly influence decisions, and those decisions shape the direction of a person's life. Over time, weakness builds a comfortable routine where hesitation becomes normal. A person begins to accept limitations that were never truly real. The tragedy is that many people live with incredible potential, but never activate it because the voice of weakness convinced them to stay small. Recognizing this internal pattern is the first powerful step toward transformation. When you begin to observe the thoughts that guide your actions, you start to notice how often weakness tries to control your choices. That awareness changes everything because once you can see the pattern, you are no longer controlled by it. You become capable of questioning it, challenging it, and eventually replacing it with stronger thinking. When a person becomes aware of their inner weakness, something important happens. They regain control over their decisions. Awareness is powerful because it interrupts automatic behavior. Instead of reacting to doubt, you start examining it. You ask yourself whether the thought in your mind is pushing you forward or quietly pulling you backward. This simple act of questioning creates space between you and the limiting belief. In that space, strength begins to grow. Strong individuals do not pretend weakness does not exist. They acknowledge it, confront it, and refuse to allow it to dictate their actions. Every time you challenge a limiting thought, you weaken its influence. Every time you act despite hesitation, you prove to yourself that fear and doubt do not define your capability. Over time, your mind learns a new pattern. Instead of shrinking away from challenge, it begins to lean toward it. Instead of avoiding risk, it starts to evaluate opportunities with clarity and courage. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide that your inner voice will no longer operate without question. Awareness turns weakness from an invisible enemy into something visible and manageable. And once it becomes visible, it can be confronted, dismantled, and ultimately replaced with a mindset that supports growth, discipline, and purposeful action. Comfort has a quiet way of convincing people that they are safe when in reality they are slowly becoming stagnant. It feels pleasant because it asks nothing difficult from you. There is no pressure to grow, no challenge to overcome, and no demand to stretch your abilities. But comfort can quietly become the greatest enemy of progress. When a person repeatedly chooses what is easy, their mind begins to expect ease in every situation. The moment something difficult appears, hesitation immediately follows. Weakness loves comfort because comfort protects it. It builds a routine where nothing changes and nothing improves. Many people stay in situations that no longer help them grow simply because the routine feels familiar. They wake up, follow the same patterns, and convince themselves that stability means success. But true growth has never been created by repeating safe routines. It emerges when a person decides to step beyond what feels convenient. The moment you challenge comfort, you begin to wake up the stronger version of yourself. Your mind starts learning that progress requires movement, effort, and courage. Comfort will always offer you the easiest road, but the easiest road rarely leads to the most meaningful destination. When you recognize how comfort protects weakness, you begin to treat it with caution instead of blind acceptance. Real power begins the moment you become willing to move toward discomfort with purpose. Discomfort is not a punishment. It is a signal that you are stretching beyond the limits of your old identity. Every skill you want to develop, every goal you want to reach, and every level of growth you want to achieve will require moments where you feel uncertain or challenged. That feeling is not weakness leaving you behind. It is strength being built inside you. People who accomplish meaningful things understand this principle clearly. They do not wait until something feels easy before they take action. Instead, they train themselves to act even when the path feels demanding. Each time they step forward despite discomfort, their confidence expands. The mind begins to understand that difficulty is temporary, but growth is permanent. Over time, the same challenges that once felt intimidating become normal parts of progress. This shift transforms the way you see effort and challenge. Instead of avoiding them, you begin to welcome them because you understand their purpose. Weakness fades when you repeatedly prove that comfort does not control your decisions. When your actions are guided by purpose rather than convenience, you begin to develop the resilience and determination that define strong individuals. Fear has a remarkable ability to disguise itself as something reasonable. It rarely arrives announcing that it is trying to stop you. Instead, it appears in the form of logical-sounding thoughts. It tells you that the timing is not right, that you should wait until you feel more prepared, or that others might judge you if you fail. These thoughts sound practical, and because they sound practical, many people never question them. Over time, fear becomes part of their decision-making process. Opportunities are delayed, goals are postponed, and actions are avoided. Weakness depends on this disguise because as long as fear appears logical, it remains unchallenged. But when you begin to examine these thoughts carefully, you notice something important. Many of them are not based on real evidence. They are predictions about what might happen, not facts about what will happen. The mind creates these predictions to protect you from discomfort and uncertainty. While protection can sometimes be useful, it can also quietly trap you in a life where progress never truly begins. The moment you realize that fear often hides behind the mask of logic, you gain the ability to question it. You start separating genuine caution from unnecessary hesitation, and that awareness weakens fear's control over your actions. Once you begin challenging fear, its influence slowly begins to fade. Fear grows strongest when it operates without resistance. When people automatically believe every doubtful thought, the mind becomes conditioned to retreat from difficulty. But when you pause and examine those thoughts, a powerful shift begins to occur. Instead of accepting fear as guidance, you begin testing it with action. You take small steps forward even when uncertainty is present. Each step sends a clear signal to your mind that hesitation no longer controls your behavior. The remarkable truth about fear is that it often dissolves the moment you confront it directly. What once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable once you move toward it instead of away from it. Confidence does not come from waiting until fear disappears. Confidence grows when you repeatedly prove to yourself that fear cannot stop you. This process gradually replaces weakness with courage. Over time, your mind begins to adopt a new expectation. Instead of searching for reasons to avoid action, it starts looking for ways to move forward. That is the moment when fear loses its disguise, and strength begins to take its rightful place in your thinking and in your life. Discipline is the force that separates intention from achievement. Many people experience moments of inspiration where they feel ready to change their lives. In those moments, they make promises to themselves about becoming stronger, more focused, and more determined. But inspiration by itself does not create lasting transformation. Weakness often waits for the excitement of the moment to fade. When motivation disappears, the old habits quietly return. This is where discipline becomes powerful. Discipline does not rely on temporary emotion. It relies on decision and consistency. It means doing what must be done even when the excitement is gone and the task feels demanding. Discipline trains the mind to respect commitments rather than ignore them. Every time a person follows through on a responsibility, they strengthen their sense of control over their own life. Weakness thrives in inconsistency because inconsistency allows hesitation to take over. But discipline replaces hesitation with structure. It creates a rhythm of action that slowly builds strength, confidence, and reliability. Over time, disciplined behavior reshapes identity. A person who once doubted their ability begins to see clear proof of their own capability. The more consistent the actions become, the weaker the voice of doubt becomes. What makes discipline so powerful is that it works even when progress feels slow. Many people abandon their efforts because they expect immediate results. When improvement does not appear quickly, weakness tries to convince them that the effort is pointless. But discipline understands something important. Lasting change is built through repeated actions over time. Each small step may appear insignificant on its own, but together they create momentum that cannot be ignored. A person who chooses discipline develops patience alongside strength. They learn to trust the process of consistent effort rather than chasing quick success. Over time, the results begin to appear not only in achievements, but also in mindset. The disciplined individual becomes more focused, more resilient, and more confident in facing challenges. Their mind begins to expect action instead of avoidance. Weakness gradually loses its place because it can no longer interrupt the pattern of consistent effort. Discipline transforms everyday behavior into a foundation for growth. It turns ordinary routines into powerful tools for personal development. When discipline becomes part of your identity, weakness has very little space left to survive. Excuses are one of the most subtle forms of weakness because they often sound reasonable. They present themselves as explanations rather than limitations. A person might say that the timing is not right, that resources are limited, or that circumstances are too difficult. While challenges are real, excuses transform those challenges into permanent barriers. Weakness depends on excuses because they allow a person to feel justified in avoiding action. Instead of confronting the problem, the mind creates a story that makes inaction feel acceptable. Over time, this habit becomes deeply rooted. Every new opportunity is filtered through the same lens of doubt and justification. The danger is not only that progress stops, but that the individual begins to believe the story they have created. They begin to see themselves as someone limited by their environment rather than empowered by their decisions. Breaking this pattern requires honesty. It requires looking at your thoughts and asking whether they are truly describing reality or simply protecting you from effort and uncertainty. When a person begins to recognize how excuses operate, they start to regain control of their choices. They stop defending their limitations and begin confronting them. This shift in thinking marks the beginning of real personal strength. Responsibility is the force that replaces excuses with action. When a person chooses responsibility, they stop focusing on what cannot be controlled and begin focusing on what can. This change in perspective is powerful because it immediately restores a sense of ownership over life's direction. Instead of blaming circumstances, the individual starts asking a different question: what can I do next? That simple question creates momentum. It moves the mind away from complaint and towards solution. Strong individuals are not people who never face difficulty. They are people who refuse to surrender their power to those difficulties. Responsibility trains the mind to look for possibilities even in challenging situations. Each time a person chooses responsibility, they weaken the habit of excuse-making. Over time, this creates a new identity built on accountability and determination. The individual becomes someone who responds to obstacles with effort rather than avoidance. Weakness loses its influence because the mind no longer seeks comfort in explanation. Instead, it seeks progress through action. Responsibility transforms the way challenges are perceived. What once looked like a reason to stop becomes an opportunity to grow stronger, think creatively, and move forward with greater resilience and purpose. One of the greatest sources of weakness in a person's life is the constant search for approval. Many individuals quietly measure their confidence based on how others react to them. If they receive praise, they feel strong and capable. If they face criticism or doubt, their confidence immediately begins to shrink. This pattern creates a fragile mindset because it places personal power in the hands of other people. Weakness grows in this environment because a person becomes hesitant to take action unless they feel supported by everyone around them. But the truth is that meaningful progress rarely receives universal approval in the beginning. Every person who has attempted to grow, lead, or pursue a different path has faced moments where others questioned their decisions. When someone depends entirely on outside validation, those moments of doubt can stop them from moving forward. The desire to be accepted can quietly replace the desire to grow. Instead of following their purpose, individuals begin adjusting their choices to satisfy the expectations of others. Over time, this creates frustration and confusion because the person is no longer living according to their own values. Recognizing this pattern is important because it reveals how easily weakness can disguise itself as politeness or caution when it is actually fear of disapproval. Developing inner authority is the powerful step that breaks this cycle. Inner authority means trusting your ability to think clearly, evaluate situations, and make decisions that align with your purpose. It does not mean ignoring wisdom from others, but it means refusing to surrender your direction to outside opinions. When a person begins to build this kind of confidence, their mindset changes dramatically. They become less concerned with approval and more focused on responsibility. Instead of asking whether everyone will agree with their actions, they begin asking whether their actions are meaningful and necessary. This shift creates a stronger and more stable sense of self. Challenges and criticism no longer feel like threats to identity because the individual understands their own values and direction. Over time, this mindset builds quiet confidence. A person with inner authority does not need constant reassurance because they trust their own judgment and their commitment to growth. Weakness gradually loses influence when decisions are guided by purpose instead of popularity. The individual becomes someone who listens, learns, and adapts, but never abandons their responsibility to think independently. Inner authority transforms hesitation into clarity and replaces uncertainty with a calm determination to move forward regardless of external noise. Purpose is one of the most powerful forces that can eliminate weakness from a person's life. When someone does not clearly understand why they are moving forward, their motivation becomes fragile. They start many things, but struggle to finish them. They feel inspired for a moment, but that inspiration fades quickly because it is not connected to something meaningful. Weakness often grows in this kind of uncertainty. Without purpose, the mind becomes easily distracted by comfort, doubt, and temporary emotions. A person begins to drift through life reacting to situations instead of shaping them. But the moment purpose becomes clear, everything begins to change. Purpose acts like a compass that organizes your thoughts and directs your energy. It reminds you why your effort matters even when progress feels slow. Instead of asking whether something feels easy, you begin asking whether it aligns with your mission. That shift in thinking strengthens determination. The challenges that once seemed overwhelming begin to look like necessary steps toward something valuable. When people know that their actions contribute to a meaningful direction, they naturally develop more courage and discipline. Purpose creates a sense of responsibility that pushes individuals to become stronger than their doubts. Weakness begins to fade because the mind now has a clear reason to continue moving forward. When purpose becomes the center of your thinking, your priorities become sharper and your decisions become clearer. Distractions that once consumed your attention begin to lose their importance. Instead of spending energy on things that do not contribute to growth, you begin focusing on actions that bring you closer to your goals. This focus creates momentum. Each step forward reinforces your belief that progress is possible and meaningful. Purpose also strengthens resilience. When difficulties appear, they no longer feel like signs that you should stop. Instead, they become challenges that test your commitment to your direction. People who live with purpose understand that obstacles are part of the journey, not evidence of failure. This mindset replaces hesitation with determination. Over time, the individual begins to develop a deeper sense of identity connected to their mission. They see themselves not as someone struggling with weakness, but as someone actively growing through challenge. Purpose becomes the energy that fuels discipline, courage, and persistence. It reminds you that your effort is connected to something larger than temporary comfort. And when a person truly believes in the meaning behind their actions, weakness finds very little room to survive because purpose continually calls them to rise, act, and move forward with conviction.